76-71. 2 minutes and 14 seconds left in the Final Four semifinal. The defending national champions, the team that seemed unstoppable, the team that had humiliated Duke by 30 points just 12 months earlier, they were about to lose. Bobby Hurley, a sophomore, still haunted by the worst night of his basketball life, still carrying the weight of the 103-73 loss. He takes the ball, he dribbles, the defense closes, 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and he fires from beyond the arc. Nothing but net. 76-74.
Time to not worry about threes, and Hurley hits one right there because it was available. What a big three by Bobby Hurley.
The defending champions are falling. But they would not go quietly into the night. Brian Davis, a role player, a kid nobody knew would be crucial in this moment. He's cutting baseline. He's finishing. And one, the call. The crowd is deafening. It's 76-76. The game is tied. Less than 2 minutes left. UNLV would have the ball. They would have a chance to go back to the national championship game. Larry Johnson, their star, went to the free throw line. He missed the first. He missed the second. 2 free throws gone. And in that instant, in that singular moment of missed rubber hitting the back of the iron, a dynasty was being undone. Christian Laettner, another sophomore, tall, skilled, burning with something that went deeper than talent. He would make the next 2 free throws, and Duke would escape. The impossible had happened. The unbeaten had fallen. Welcome back to Iconic Seasons, the podcast where we tell stories of college basketball teams and moments that changed everything. I'm your host, Aaron Meyer, and today we're talking about a season that shouldn't have happened, a team that nobody believed in, a group of players who carried the weight of humiliation all the way to the promised land. This is the story of the 1990-91 Duke Blue Devils, Banner 1. "12 months before that impossible night in Indianapolis, Coach Mike Krzyzewski's program was at a crossroads. His team had just lost the national championship game to UNLV by 30 points. 30! In front of millions of people. They didn't just lose, they were demolished. And in the offseason, 3 critical players graduated. The roster was gutted. The recruiting news was mixed. The experts said Duke wasn't a threat in 1991. They said Coach K had maybe 4 good years left before the window closed. They said this program would disappear back into the regional tournament obscurity from which it came. They were wrong. What unfolded over the next 9 months would redefine Duke basketball. It would make Mike Krzyzewski's name synonymous with championship-level excellence, and it would launch 4 players into basketball immortality. This is how it happened. Let's go back to April 2nd, 1990, the McNichols Arena in Denver. Duke had just been obliterated on the national stage. The score, again, was 103-73. That's 30 points in a national semifinal. That's not a basketball game. It's a massacre. If you ever lost by that much, you know the exact feeling of looking up and seeing that score. UNLV, led by Jerry Tarkanian and propelled by a suffocating defense, had dismantled everything Duke tried to do. The players walked off the court feeling like failures. Coach K, he was devastated. The program seemed to be in a crisis. But there was a small moment, almost too small to notice, that contained everything that was about to happen. After the game, Mike Krzyzewski's mother, Emily, pulled him aside. She had traveled to Denver to watch her son coach on the biggest stage in college basketball. She had watched him lose by 30 and said to him, "You'll do better next year." That's it. No lecture, no false comfort, just a fact, an assumption that the hard part, the rebuilding, had already begun in her mind. The summer of 1990 brought departure that seemed catastrophic. Abdul Nabi was gone, Bricky was gone, Henderson was gone, 3 experienced players who had been part of the core. The returning nucleus was young. Very young. And it may not seem like a big deal now because we're so used to young players excelling on a national stage. But at the time, it wasn't this stat like we have today, 22 seniors at the same school across all of Division I. It was a lot more common then. Bobby Hurley was a sophomore, the same point guard who was on the court for that 103-73 nightmare. And that weight didn't leave him. It lived in his chest. But there was recruitment news that changed everything. Coach K had been chasing a 5-star prospect named Grant Hill. Grant Hill was the son of Calvin Hill, a former NFL running back. Grant was intellectual, poised, supremely athletic, the kind of player who didn't come around every year. For a long time, Grant was a Georgetown lean. Then he became a North Carolina lean. Carolina's coach was Dean Smith. Carolina was 100% blue blood. Carolina was the obvious choice. But Grant Hill chose Duke. He chose Durham. He chose a program that had just been humiliated, that had lost 3 starters, and that the entire college basketball world had written off. Hill said, "I became a big Tommy Amaker fan. He was from Northern Virginia, just like I was, and I thought playing the same place he played would be fun." It came down to Duke, North Carolina, and Georgetown. His father, Calvin Hill, felt that if Grant turned out the way Amaker and Dawkins turned out, it'd be a great thing. In the end, it was Krzyzewski's intensity that sealed it, and the fact that Coach K didn't make promises about playing time or shots. He just said, "You're going to come to Duke and become a great player. I believe in you." Simplicity. With Grant Hill on the roster, Duke had suddenly repositioned itself. The team still had Christian Laettner, a 6'10" sophomore who was about to have a massive growth spurt in skill and leadership. They still had Bobby Hurley, who was just about to have his own journey from haunted to transcendent. And now they had Grant Hill, a generational talent, choosing to build something instead of joining an empire. But talent wasn't enough. There was a psychological element that had to happen first. Bobby Hurley had to change. He was a talented point guard, but he wore his emotions on his sleeve. Every bad call, every missed pass, every frustration. And we talked about this in our preview, the Luka look. The whole building could see it on his face, and when the point guard looks rattled, the whole team feels it. After the NC State loss, Coach K had assistant Pete Gaudet put together a tape specifically for Hurley. Not of his turnovers, not of his missed shots, of his reactions. Every grimace, every eye roll, every moment he let his emotions take over. It became known as the whine tape. Hurley said later, "I was shocked when he showed it to me. Imagine if a football quarterback let people see how upset he was all the time. I was the quarterback. I was doing it without the helmet to hide my face." Hurley watched. He learned. He didn't just become a better decision maker. He became a different kind of leader, someone whose confidence lifted his teammates instead of dragging them down. As Grant Hill put it, "Christian was our best player, but Bobby was the point guard. A coach can lead only so much. Someone has to be the leader on the court." As the season approached, no one was talking about Duke. The preseason predictions didn't have them in the Final Four. They were a nice story, maybe Elite Eight even, if everything broke right. But the defending champion UNLV was the team everyone feared. Kansas was also loaded. North Carolina had Dean Smith and an incredible roster. Oklahoma had Billy Tubbs and a high-octane offense. Duke was just an afterthought. But in the locker room, something was forming. A hunger, a sense of purpose, a belief that what had happened in Denver wasn't a referendum on their future. It was preparation for it. The 1990-91 regular season was a bit of a roller coaster of learning and refinement. Duke didn't play their best basketball early. They made some mistakes. They lost games they should have won. Maybe we should call this the Izzo. But each loss taught them something. Their opening ACC game was at Virginia. The Cavaliers didn't just beat Duke. They out-toughed them, 81-64, and it wasn't close. And on the bus ride back to Durham, Krzyzewski was already planning his response. The team pulled into Cameron Indoor Stadium, the parking lot, shortly before 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The players were ready to go back to their dorms. Their coach had other ideas. Everybody dressed, taped, and ready to go in 15 minutes. You didn't show up for the game today, so now you'll show up for practice. I just think that this is a bygone era, but it's fascinating to think how this level of talent at the time reacted to the purpose behind his words, the knowledge and the wisdom to demonstrate physically what they didn't in the game and reinforce what is necessary in future games. The practice was intense, physical, and it culminated with Grant Hill breaking his nose after he dove headfirst into a scrum of bodies. Hill later said, "The message we got from Coach K that day was clear. He wasn't so much angry that we lost the game, but angry at the way we lost. We'd played soft. The other team was tougher than we were. If the other team was better, he could live with that. He wouldn't accept the other team being tougher." Hill paused and added with a laugh, "The good news was we got the message. The bad news was I ended up with a broken nose." 4 nights later, Duke played Georgia Tech, and something had shifted. Everything Coach K had tried to install, the toughness, the defensive intensity, the willingness to execute on offense suddenly clicked. Duke won 98-57, 41 points. They didn't just beat Georgia Tech. Again, they humiliated. Georgia Tech coach Bobby Cremins walked out shaking his head. Cremins said afterwards, "I think this might be his best team. They've been to 5 Final Fours in 6 years. But I thought it was his most complete team." From there, Duke became a different team. Wins against Maryland, wins against Wake Forest. They had an identity that had been solidified. They were a team that played amazing defense. They were a team that didn't beat itself with turnovers. They were a team that could execute in the clutch. 2 weeks after the Virginia humiliation, Duke faced North Carolina. Oh man, Duke, North Carolina. Always a classic. This one was at home, at Cameron Indoor Stadium. It was a moment in the season that really tested them. UNC came in at 13-1 and ranked number 5 in the nation. They were good, really good. And Cameron was packed. The Cameron Crazies. It's the kind of full that makes those opposing teams feel like they're playing in another world, another planet. Duke pulled away in the final 5 minutes. The shooting got cleaner, defense got tighter, and they won 74-60. After the game, Hurley said something that showed the maturation that was happening. After the game, I think I began to understand how good we could be. That's not the confidence of someone looking back. That's the confidence of someone realizing in the moment that something special was happening. That the humiliation of the past year wasn't the end of the story, but the beginning of it. But then, as happens in basketball, they lost to NC State. An emotional letdown and a reminder that consistency is harder than an amazing night. The regular season finale came at Chapel Hill. Duke and North Carolina were tied at 10-3 in the ACC. This was for the regular season championship. This was the tiebreaker. North Carolina had all their dominance, all their history, all their Duke hatred. Duke had something else. They had come from behind before. King Rice hit the first basket for North Carolina. Then UNC never led again. Not once. Duke controlled the game from that moment forward. Bobby Hurley and Christian Laettner both scored 18 points. And Duke won 83-77. Nobody expected that. Not the Carolina fan base anyways. And not the media. Nobody had predicted that Duke, the one that had been demolished a year ago, the one that had been written off before the start of the season, or at least framed up as an afterthought, would sweep the regular season series against Dean Smith's loaded roster. But again, that reality check seems right there. The push towards the consistency moment to moment. And it was waiting for them again in the ACC Tournament Championship. Carolina came to the finals and they beat Duke 96-74. A thorough and complete whipping. Krzyzewski benched his starters in the second half, made a public statement that wasn't good enough. Their celebrations needed to wait, that they couldn't stop learning and developing. On the bus ride back from that loss, something happened that would define everything that followed. Krzyzewski stood up with the bus quiet. The players were devastated. And he said, matter-of-factly. I love that phrase, matter-of-factly. Krzyzewski says, if you play the way I know you can play, we're going to win the national championship. That wasn't hope or motivation. It was certainty. That was a coach telling his team that all this, the loss, the doubts, the outside noise, it didn't matter. The outcome is written if they play the right way. Hurley remembered it like this. I was so depressed about the way I played and the way we played. That's a point guard phrase right there. I was lost in a fog. I remember hearing Coach K say, we're going to win the national championship. I love that there's a paraphrase there. And he thought of it not as a pep talk, but a matter of fact again. It did nothing else, it got me thinking about what was to come, not what had just happened. That's the moment the 1991 championship was won. It wasn't in the Final Four against Kansas, not on the court. It was won on the bus when a coach stood up and commanded his team to believe in something they couldn't see. It's funny that I remember, again, not the same, but still things that you clock. There was one person in the state of Indiana that picked our high school team to go to the Final Four. And I remember thinking about that as we slowly marched to that point. So words and thoughts coalesce into the effort that you put in. And that's really what's happening here with the Duke team. The NCAA tournament itself was a bit of a blur. Duke entered the Midwest Regional, and they were overwhelming. They beat St. Louis, they beat UConn, they beat Iowa, they beat St. John's 78-61 in the regional final. 4 tournament games by an average margin of victory of 21 points. They were playing the best basketball of their entire lives. Grant Hill flying, Christian Laettner being unstoppable, Hurley running the offense like a maestro. This wasn't a good team anymore. It was a team playing at a championship level. Then they boarded the plane to Indianapolis. Remember, they're back in Indianapolis this year. We'll see about this year's team. And the Final Four was set. Waiting for them in the national semifinals was, again, UNLV. The same UNLV team that had beaten them by 30 points the previous year in the championship game. They were a monster in waiting. Everything that had happened over the past 12 months, every practice, every night after a loss, the broken nose, sweeping UNC, the matter-of-fact statement by Coach K on the bus, all of it had coalesced into this one moment. In the days before the Final Four, Coach K did something that most coaches would never do. He watched the 1990 championship game film alone, 103-73, all of the minutes of the humiliation, forced himself to relive it, not to torture himself, but to understand, to remember exactly what that team had done, to absorb each lesson that crushing defeat had to teach. That takes some stones.
When beating UNLV is an attitude.
Can't let them throw the ball the length of the floor and up-tempo everything because they'll just run you out of the ballpark.
Well, you're going to have to pray, and then you're also going to have to play a perfect game.
They don't show up. Yeah.
Probably there's no way this year to beat them.
After that, he made a decision. He brought the film to his team. He showed them. He made them watch their own destruction, made them sit with it, made them understand that everything they built over 12 months was a response to that moment. In the final moments before the game, Krzyzewski did something else. He closed his eyes and repeated a mantra to himself over and over. 31-7, 31-7, 31-7. 31 wins, 7 losses. Not if they won, when. His mind had already decided the outcome. The other semifinal had already happened. North Carolina lost to Kansas. In the Duke locker room, Krzyzewski told his team, Carolina's lost. I know how I feel about it, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Take a deep breath, feel a little bit of relief. Now flush it. Your minds need to be 100% on Vegas. Hurley admitted later, let's be honest, we're happy Carolina lost. Not because we didn't have to play them, but, well, we're Duke, and they're Carolina. Duke jumped out to a 15-6 lead. Laettner was hitting shots, Hurley was orchestrating, and the defense was suffocating. But UNLV had been a number 1 seed for a reason, and they clawed back. The game became a seesaw, back and forth, neither team pulling away. Greg Anthony, UNLV's best perimeter defender, fouled out. That was crucial. It meant Bobby Hurley had more freedom to operate. The game tightened, became one of those Final Four semifinals where everything hinged on individual possessions, on moments, on execution when it mattered the most. With 2 minutes and 14 seconds left, the scoreboard read 76-71. UNLV was ahead. The defending champions still had a pulse. The team that had humiliated Duke still had a shot at getting back to the national championship game. Bobby Hurley brought the ball up the court. His defender was closing. He didn't have much space. The shot clock was ticking down. 12 seconds, 11, 10. And then Hurley released a 3-point shot from the wing. Swish. Nothing but net. UNLV would have the next possession. They could still win this, but Brian Davis was about to change everything. Brian Davis was a depth player on this team, not a star. Not the first option, but this is the important part. This is the part where belief comes in, where that statement on the bus circles back. He was ready. Davis cut to the basket. He caught a pass. The defender fouled him. He converted the basket and won. And when he made the free throw, it was 76-76. The game was tied. Less than 2 minutes left in the Final Four semifinal.
Hill driving, baseline, he finds Davis, off the glass, score it, and he's fouled.
UNLV came back down the court. Larry Johnson, the star, LJ, Grandmama, most feared scorer. He's posted up. He drives, contact. He goes to the free throw line. 2 shots. 18,000 people in the Hoosier Dome, probably more than that. Millions watching on television. The game rested on this. He misses the first free throw. He was 82% from the free throw line that year and misses the first. And then he misses the second as well. But the basketball gods weren't done testing Duke. Thomas Hill, in a frenzy of the moment, stepped into the lane a split second too early. Lane violation. Johnson gets a third chance. He makes it. The game's tied. 77-all. 50 seconds left. Duke ran its offense. Thomas Hill took a jumper from near the top of the key. It was long, but Laettner somehow got inside of all of UNLV's big men and grabbed the offensive rebound.
Laettner with the rebound. Jerry Tarkanian sitting on the bench with a towel on his head like he's on vacation in the Bahamas or something. Mike Krzyzewski up on the sidelines.
Duke had 4 offensive rebounds the entire game. This was the one that mattered. He went back up. Everett Gray fouled him. 12.6 seconds left. Tarkanian calls timeout. And let the kid think about it, about the free throws. Let that pressure cooker build. This is knowing your teammates. I love this. These little qualities about championship teams, too. Grant Hill says about that moment, that was a waste of energy. We all knew there was no way Christian was going to miss. Both free throws were perfect, 79-77. Anderson Hunt inbounds to Johnson. Johnson crosses midcourt, veers right. Laettner gave him space, daring him to shoot a 3. Johnson picked up his dribble, panicked, reversed the ball to Hunt, who had Hurley draped all over him, and flings a desperation shot at the buzzer, but it wasn't close. The ball bounced long. Bobby Hurley grabbed it and flung it towards the ceiling. The impossible had happened.
Hurley's got it. Duke has done it. Duke has upset UNLV.
But Coach K did something that almost nobody remembers. The celebration was chaotic. The court was stormed. His team was mobbing each other, and Krzyzewski, he raced onto the court, his palms facing down, and he calmed them. He motioned them down. He said, "Cool it." He was already coaching the next game. This is a recurring theme that I see about these high-level coaches, is that they have an almost inability. They have an inability to stay in the moment. They're always looking ahead to that next moment. They're planners. They're seekers. They're always looking for that next mountain to climb. He was already thinking about Kansas, already focused on the thing that matters, finishing what they started. The day after the UNLV miracle, the team boarded the bus for Sunday practice. As Krzyzewski got on board, he noticed something. Freshman Marty Clark and senior Greg Kubek were wearing brand new cowboy hats, grinning, loose, and feeling good about themselves. Without saying a word, Krzyzewski walked down the aisle and snatched the hats off their heads. Then he told the bus driver to wait. He stood in front of his team and said, "I really don't care that you guys beat Vegas. And you know what? Neither does Kansas. That was yesterday. Trust me, if we aren't ready to play tomorrow, they will beat us. And if that happens, you aren't going to want to deal with me. I don't like the way you're walking, the way you're talking, and I don't like," he paused to glare at Kubek and Clark, "the way you're dressing." Then he sat down and suppressed a smile because he admitted later, what was I going to get on them about? They beat Vegas. That was an unbelievable accomplishment. But I couldn't let them think the job was done because it wasn't. Again, that's coaching. That's focus. That's the reminder that a group of young men, the celebration can't happen because it isn't over. The final victory hasn't happened yet. The championship game arrived. Kansas was coached by Roy Williams, a Dean Smith protege. and led by Terry Brown, Adonis Jordan, and Mark Randall. They had upset Indiana, Arkansas, and North Carolina to get to the championship game. They weren't intimidated by anyone, but Duke came out and played one of the most confident games in tournament history. Greg Kubek, the only senior in the starting lineup, the co-captain who nobody talked about, hit 2 early corner jumpers, one of them a 3. He gave Duke a quick lead, and that set the tone for the game. It just said, we're not intimidated, we're not scared, this is our time. Then came a moment that still lives today. It started with Kubek. He forced Kansas to miss near the basket. Laettner rebounds, pitches the ball to Hurley, who charges down the court. He crosses midcourt, spots Grant Hill cutting from the right wing towards the basket, and he throws this pass. Now you can close your eyes and picture this one, because this one is an absolute all-timer. Hurley later admits it was a turnover the minute I let go of the pass. If I'd thrown a perfect pass, Grant would have had to make a great play to catch it. As it was, I overthrew it. It should have ended up in the third row of seats. But Grant Hill, this 6'8", impossibly athletic wing, somehow times his jump perfectly. He reaches up behind his head with his right hand, caught the ball, and in one motion, brought it down and dunked it. The Hoosier Dome erupts. On the broadcast, Billy Packard yelled in amazement. Jim Nantz, calling the championship game for the first time, could barely contain himself. The pass had been going out of bounds, and Hill went up and got it anyways. This is Wemby-level alien stuff. When asked about it later, Hill laughed and said, "All I could see is my terrible freshman haircut." He added, "I saw the pass coming, and I realized my only chance was to try to grab it and dunk it. No way could I actually catch it. Instinct took over." For the record, it was a bad haircut. Still amazing, though, and a time capsule for sure. But the play was magnificent.
Then Grant Hill put an exclamation point on an early double run.
Oh, can you believe he got that high? Jim, that ball was thrown to the point that it was going out of bounds. I don't know how he got up there to get it.
I never thought he would save it, much less dunk it.
That was a David Thompson type dunk from yesteryear.
Hill's astounding dunk gave Duke a 7-1 lead.
Great highlight dunks of the tournament so far with Tyrell Ward going up high with a one-handed finish, and it reminded us of this. Hurley to Hill, and also it's in Grant's contract we must play this once a weekend during the tournament. Thank God you had Hurley. You didn't have any game whatsoever.
Only 2 highlights of that?
That's it, just 2.
Just 2. Tyrell had a better haircut than I had.
Hey, you always complaining that still bothers you,
It
huh?
was a bad haircut, yes.
What was it, the fade?
No, it wasn't fade. That's the problem.
You needed the fade. Well, you didn't have the kind of cash that you have.
Billy McCaffrey came off the bench and had the game of his life in this game. 6 for 8 from the floor, including 2 3-pointers. Thomas Hill had struggled shooting, and McCaffrey, who had lost his starting spot mid-season to an injury, never complained and stepped in and gave Duke exactly the boost they needed. Christian Laettner was perfect from the free throw line, 12 for 12 in the championship game, all under pressure. And he didn't miss. Kansas tried, they fought. 2 quick 3-pointers, the second off a backcourt steal, cut Duke's lead to 70-65. Suddenly there was some nerves that were emerging. Duke called a timeout with 18 seconds left. Grant Hill was inbounding the ball. Kansas was fronting every Duke player, trying to steal the pass, and then Brian Davis caught Hill's eye. He tilted his head toward the basket. Hill caught the signal. He faked one direction, then lofted the ball long. Davis sprinted free, caught it, and dunked it with 10 seconds left, 72-65. It wasn't just 2 points, that was the punctuation mark. Game was over. The national championship had been won. As the confetti fell, the team rushed the court. And in the middle of all that chaos, there's a moment of complete victory. Brian Davis saw Coach K. Davis wrapped him in a hug and said, "We did it for you, baby." You gotta love the genuineness that comes out in these moments of joy and exhilaration.
3, 2, Jordan, let's fly. It is over. The Destiny Darlings have done it. The Duke Blue Devils have won their first ever national basketball championship. 72-65 over the Kansas Jayhawks.
And then there was Gene Corrigan, the ACC commissioner, Duke class of 1952, a man who simply could not bring himself to watch. Somewhere in the second half, he left his seat, left the Hoosier Dome entirely, walked around the massive building, checking his watch every 30 seconds. As the final buzzer sounded, Corrigan saw people streaming out of the exits. He grabbed a stranger by the shoulder. Who won? Who won the damn game? Duke by 7, came the answer. Corrigan teared up. Then he raced back inside the building to congratulate the coach and the team for a game he never saw. After the game, Coach K was asked about the doubters, about all the people who said Duke wasn't good enough in March, about all the questions heading into the season. People always said we weren't a good enough team in March. We've always been a good team in March. We were just never quite good enough in April. Tonight, we were good enough in April. The next day, Duke returned to Cameron Indoor Stadium. The team was paraded through campus. The celebration was everywhere. But there was a moment, a quiet moment, when Coach K stood in Cameron with his players. They looked around at all the banners hanging in the rafters. Final Four banners, Elite 8 banners, ACC championships, but no national championship banner. Someone asked, where do we put it? And that single question contains everything that was about to happen, because it wasn't the end of Duke basketball. This was the beginning. This was banner 1, the first of a dynasty that would dominate college basketball for the next 2 decades. The very next year, Duke would win again. Christian Laettner would create arguably the most famous shot in tournament history, the miracle against Kentucky. Coach K wasn't just getting started. He was just beginning to build something that would reshape the college game over and over. But this season, the 1990-91 season, was the crucial one because it proved something that the doubters had denied, that a team can be humiliated and come back from it, that a coach's vision can outlast skepticism, that players can grow into something greater than themselves. Bobby Hurley would go on to become one of the great point guards in college basketball history. In fact, his assist total just got passed last night by a Purdue player that'll go unnamed for now. Maybe they'll have an iconic season this year. Who knows? But he won 2 national championships before he left for the NBA. Carried that 103-73 loss with him forever. But he also carried this with him, win against UNLV. It was the antidote to that loss. Laettner would become the most iconic player in Duke history. Maybe the emblem of Duke is the way to phrase it. His free throws sealed victories. His shooting touch was supernatural. And a year after winning the championship, he would take a pass from Grant Hill, hit that jumper against Kentucky, a forever replay. Grant Hill, despite being a freshman in this season and coming into a program that nobody believed in, developed into an NBA All-Star. His athleticism, his intelligence, his willingness to be part of something bigger than himself, it all matured at Duke. It all came into focus in Cameron. And Coach K, he's never the same after 1991. He tasted the national championship success. He understood what it took. He knew exactly what the blueprint looked like. And for the next 3 decades, he built that on that foundation. A second championship in 92, then 2 more, 5 Final Fours in a row, 13 in all. The most dominant stretch by a single coach in the modern era. His mom, Emily Krzyzewski, was right. He did do it better the next year. And the next year, and the next decade. The 1990-91 Duke Blue Devils teach us something about what it takes to become great. It's not just talent, it's not just coaching, it's the willingness to carry a loss, to internalize it, to let it reshape you. It's the ability to believe in something when nobody else believes in you. It's the commitment to execution in moments when execution is all that separates you from failure. That banner 1 hanging in Cameron Indoor Stadium, it represents more than just a national championship. It represents the moment when a program became a dynasty, when a coach proved that he could overcome anything, when a group of young players learned that yesterday's humiliation is tomorrow's motivation. Thank you for joining us on Iconic Seasons. I'm your host, Aaron Meyer. We'll be back soon with another story of a team that changed everything. Until then, remember, keep your dribble low and your eyes up.